Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Tigers Talk Rugby. Before we get started, I'd like to thank Tiger Vision for providing us with the facilities and equipment to make this possible. So, with that, I'm Ethan Richards.
I'm CJ Bakel.
And we're your hosts today. We are joined by us again by the wonderful Tom Goodall.
And another returner, Tyler Doolittle. So, like we said last week, this week is the highly anticipated World Cup group predictions episode. So, it's going to be a lot of hot takes. So, we got a great one for you guys right now. So, we might as well just jump into it.
Let's get right into it.
Oh, yeah. Group A, here we come.
Group A. All right,
Tom.
Okay.
Ireland jersey over here.
Yes. Now that I am completely unbiased.
Okay, let's first say who's in Group A.
So Group A, we've got Ireland, Scotland, Japan, Russia, and Samoa.
Okay. So, Tom, since you are currently wearing the Ireland jersey, you should start off with talking about Ireland. So what do you got to say?
Okay, so Ireland, they coming into the World Cup, they had a few testy warm-up matches. They took a bit of a brutal loss against England, but I think they redeemed themselves a little bit against Wales. They had two tests back-to-back, one in Cardiff, one in Dublin, and they were able to come out victorious. They were giving guys who don't normally get a chance to play. I know Joe Schmidt was testing out Jack Carty, who's a replacement 10 because Joey Carberry unfortunately got injured against Italy. And so in that England game, there were a few troubling signs. The defense, they were absolutely taken apart by England's new wing. And so Joe Schmidt had a lot of work to do, especially with Owen Farrell's father, Andy Farrell, being the defensive coach. But I'm excited for this. I think their Group A, they've got a lot of potential to come out on top, make it out of that group, even with the hosts, Japan being in there, and Scotland, another Six Nations team, being in there.
I think with this group, I think we can all agree Ireland is our expected number one seed.
Yeah, I mean,
group.
they're probably, they're the only team out of all of these that are in the top five. And they're
right now they're one.
Yeah,
right?
they're currently ranked top in the world.
Top of the world. So
even after getting crushed by England.
And they are very good in the attack, especially in small spaces. I don't know how they do it, but they're really good at if it's short field situations and in small areas, they're able to get good ball
and heavy pressure.
And heavy pressure.
Everybody runs.
They drive a very strong forward pack attack, and
yeah.
then once that wears down the defense, then they spin it out to the backs, and that's where Sexton and Ringrose and Jacob Stockdale come into their own with those scoring on the outside.
I also think that their play is very reliant on Connor Murray and Jonathan Sexton, and if both of them are on top of their game, they will do very well. But I have seen in the past where both of them are either injured or they just have a little brain fart that they don't know what they're doing. So it'll be interesting to see them. So
I'm most excited to see Scotland play against Ireland because obviously these two teams meet up a lot.
Yes.
And so I think Scotland as a team know Ireland's play style. They know what they're going to be coached to be doing coming into this World Cup. And I think that if Ireland's going to drop a game against any of the teams in their pool, I think it'll be to Scotland.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. Tyler, what are you thinking on that?
Scotland, in my opinion, in this pool. So I know maybe we're not at this point yet, but I think it's going to be Ireland and Scotland winning out this pool. But
Sure.
Scotland, for me, have always been one of the most exciting teams to watch in Europe. I love their play style. One thing that kind of worries me is that they've always been a very competitive team, but they've never really been able to kind of get that last little bit to kind of push them over and win out some of these games. So
their form is very strange because Scotland just seem to be they're hot and cold. They're like Katy Perry, you know what
Exactly,
I mean?
exactly, yes.
So 1 minute, one game, they're playing against France. They get demolished, 32-3 against France. And then, the next week, they play France in France and win. It's you see these spurts of, really good Scotland and really bad Scotland. and then they played 2 tests against Georgia, and they played fantastic against those guys. So again, Scotland, it's one of those kinds of deals. Like they could either have a fantastic World Cup or not. Like they could be out in the group stages. But they have a lot of high expectations because of that of 2015.
I think going back to 2015, obviously they made it to the semifinals and lost to Australia in one of the most questionable decisions of that entire World Cup.
Absolutely.
I think everyone that I've talked to will agree that Scotland should have been the one in the finals and not Australia. So the World Cup is definitely
it brings out the best in the
It brings out the best of every team. It's a totally different atmosphere. So I'm excited to watch them. I hope they can recreate what they had in 2015, and I'll be definitely watching them out of this group.
So who do you think their key players would be?
There's definitely going to be Stuart Hogg and Greg Laidlaw.
Stuart Hogg, the pride and joy.
Stuart Hogg is, I think everyone can agree that is their
world-class player.
That's their world-class player. He's probably the best 15 in Northern Hemisphere.
I could agree.
And some could even argue the world.
Ooh,
I think
that's a tough.
It's a bold claim.
Hot take number one of the day.
Hot
take number one.
I think there's a solid argument for that.
My interest in watching Scotland comes from how many injuries they have. Obviously, it was a joke on the internet how many injuries they had, like in the past year, and so if that trend continues, like, you know, I could see them not making it to the top 2 of their pool, specifically if they get injured early.
Yeah.
That's a problem they had. Was it just this past Six Nations? A lot of their key players ended up being injured, and you saw a Scotland team that is going to look different than the World Cup because they have those players back now. So it's going to be Scotland's one of the teams I'll be following very closely, and I hope they do well because I personally enjoy watching them.
Now Ireland and Scotland out of the way. These guys have known, or they've been hearing me talk the last few weeks. But ladies and gentlemen,
More than
Japan, the hometown team. This is hot take number 2 of this episode, and we're not but like 6 minutes in. Japan is going to the quarterfinal. They're going to go over Scotland.
Wow.
Okay, listen. I even think that they could even go. Actually, no, they're not going to go farther than that. But they are the team. Let's be honest. They're everybody's second favorite team this year. Let's be totally honest. They're the team that you're going to watch every single game, and you're going to want them to win just because they're the underdogs, because they're the hometown team, and everybody loves them. All right? So
genuinely,
I mean, like, come on. After South Africa, like in 2015, everybody loves them.
I was about to say,
ever since then, it's like they just keep on building and building and building.
Genuinely, I don't know anybody that roots against Japan ever. And I think, like, even when all of these people are traveling from all around the world to Japan to watch the World Cup, like, people are gonna just buy tickets to different games whether or not it's their team in that game. So every game that they play, especially against a team like Ireland or Scotland, who have like sturdy fan bases and heavy rivalries with some of the other fan bases that'll be there, like, the England fans will be rooting against Ireland whenever they play Japan, and stuff like that I think will bring a lot more hype and morale into the Japanese team as the tournament goes. I don't necessarily that means they're going to win game 1 or game 2, but like for sure it'll build.
Here's a couple. Let me give you a couple things also to back up my hot take.
All right.
All right, listen to me. So Jamie Joseph has a pretty solid side, made of only passionate players. So that's one thing he was looking for, is passionate players over talent. So everybody he's picked in his 31 are, he claims that are their country. Like they're very patriotic, everything like that. So I think at home, that's a big boost. All right. Number 2, against South Africa in 2015, they were 500-1 odds to win. 500-1 odds. They are currently listed as 501 odds to win the tournament. So I think it's possible. I think the odds are in their favor of getting.
Oh, yikes!
I think that they're out. I think that they could get out of the group stages.
So if I hear you,
Whoa.
501.
is
Odds
odds
are
in their
in
No,
favor.
to win, but to get out of the group stages, I think that's fine. But anyway,
I can agree that I could for sure see Japan beating Russia and Samoa.
Well, so I was just about to say Japan had warm-up matches. They played in the Pacific Cup of Nations.
Yes.
And I know they played the United States in the final of that, and they beat them.
Yeah.
like easily.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was close in the first half, but the second half, Japan
Ran away with
were
it.
just pulling away. They maintained their strength, and so they looked strong. Obviously, I haven't seen them play any of the major teams since the last World Cup. I believe was the
Pretty
last time they
much.
played any of the top tier teams. But yeah, I mean, it's the World Cup. Anything could happen. They're not in my top 2 teams to come out, but that doesn't mean that that's not possible.
They're my third.
Yeah?
Ooh.
I genuinely believe that they will beat Russia and they will beat Samoa.
Okay, all they need to do is beat Scotland on top of that to become the 2. And I think they could beat Scotland.
It depends on you. I could see your argument because it depends on what Scotland shows up to the game.
Right, so they're hot and cold, like we were saying, and Japan is going to have that boost of being at home.
So while I don't think Japan will get out of group stage, I think their must-win is definitely going to be hard to get out. It has to be Scotland. I just don't see Ireland dropping a match against.
Oh yeah,
Japan.
no,
That's just
I didn't
no
say
matter.
anything about Ireland. It's
So
not Scotland.
It has to be Scotland.
How would they beat Scotland? How would Japan beat Scotland?
So-
What do you think Japan's strengths are that are good against Scotland's weaknesses?
So Japan, they play a very fast game. They're one of the smaller teams that is going to be coming in this World Cup. So that means they have to make up for it in their speed. So you'll see they're really good at flooding support. They break a hole. All their players are going to be in there. That's just how they play. They like to keep it going, like to keep it alive because they know that they will get dominated if it comes to really a physical matchup. In that, it can get a little bit sloppy, which is some of the errors you'll see when they play against teams like New Zealand. They'll make those errors, and New Zealand can immediately punish them for that. That's
Right.
what they're known for. So
And do you believe that Scotland will be able to punish those errors?
I don't know if they'll be able to punish them as badly as a team like New Zealand could. It'll be interesting to see if the ball somehow ends up in Stuart Hogg's hand on one of those errors. I think he can definitely take advantage of that. He's just that type of player to turn any little advantage just into points or into a play. So
And 2 players to watch for Japan, I will say, is I'm going to butcher his name, but Kenki Fukuoka, who has 33 caps and he has 21 tries. He's probably one of the more prolific scorers on the team. And then Michael Leach. Michael Leach is their captain, and he's like I think he's their world-class player. He's like, high motor player, flies around the field, and not only that, he's a great leader as well as he's the face of this World Cup in Japan. Like you see pictures in Japan, and his face is everywhere.
Yeah, I've got a friend who's in Japan studying abroad. I'm real jealous of him, and I keep telling him I'm gonna make my way out there for a weekend or something. And I know that's a completely absurd concept, but he's sent me pictures or messages about like seeing signs in Tokyo about this World Cup coming up, and that's the face that he sees
Right.
everywhere. So like for sure, I know what you mean by like he is their world-class player. He is their face of the rugby program that they have.
So to finish out Group A, we have Russia and Samoa. Do you guys have anything?
So I just watched Russia played Italy in a warm-up match.
Yeah.
They have some good ball handling skills on offense. I think it's their fly half, Ramil Gesin, who he was able to get the back line functioning pretty well, but they're highly susceptible to hard lines being run against them. Italy were carving them up in the midfield with just hard lines run off a playmaker. And so I think defensively they're going to struggle against teams who can run those hard lines.
Do you think that comes from playing at a level of rugby where the physicality in the center of the field is not as intense as in the top 10 teams and the top 15 teams in the world that you traditionally would watch on TV?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think that a lot of the Russian players don't play in the high-level international club teams like France or England or Ireland, and so I think week in, week out, they don't get the same physicality of those guys who are running absolutely blinding lines, and just the size of the players. I don't think they see them as much.
So what about Samoa then? Because I think we all have agreed that neither of these teams, they sit at the bottom of the pool for us. So which do you think is better?
I'm very disappointed in Samoa because they have the history and the tradition of a really good rugby team, and like they have the talent too, or the upbringing. But at the same time, it's disappointing because they have a lot of off-field issues. So I don't know if Russia were to play Samoa, I think that's a toss-up game for me. But
do you think that toss-up comes specifically because you don't think the Samoa team has the gel that the Russian team would have, but they have the talent that is stronger than the Russian team?
I would say so. I think the talent and the size of the Samoan players would be an issue for Russia. But I think as a unit, Russia would come out stronger for me. So it's going to be close. I would probably take Samoa narrowly, but it could go either way. Not setting anything in stone for that one. All right,
so that I feel like we've covered a lot of
Group A. Yeah.
A.
Real fast, let's go through. I know I already mentioned who I thought would win out. I think it's going to be Ireland on top, and then Scotland.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that. And then probably Japan for me, and then Samoa and Russia would be my five.
False. Ireland and Japan.
Ireland, Japan
is going to be you always get the Cinderella team. Japan is it. They're the hometown team.
All right.
That would be number 2.
I'm going to go with Ireland and Scotland as well.
Yes.
For all those listening, we'd love to hear what your favorites are for each pool.
Just comment so you know it's on Facebook. Just comment down below, please.
Yeah, so let's move into Group B.
Group B, here we go.
All right.
So, Tyler, who's in Group B?
All right, so we have New Zealand, South Africa, Italy,
Namibia.
I don't know why I can never say that name. And Canada. So
Man, so many Namibians are going to be watching this, and they're going to be like, what the heck, Tyler?
I know. So, I think just starting off, this is kind of like a pool of death for some of these teams.
This is
you have South Africa and New Zealand, and that's
a tough 2 teams to have.
It's a very tough draw, and one of the things I think that the World Cup does that I'm not really a big fan of is they do the draw for these World Cups, especially the teams that automatically qualify. They do the draw way in advance.
Yeah.
And so they did this. They drew Group B at a time when South Africa weren't at their peak.
Right.
Which is how South Africa have ended up in the same group as New Zealand. But it's fantastic, exciting rugby, straight in group play. So
yeah, I mean,
not too upset.
I don't know where you guys sit with this, but I genuinely believe South Africa is going to be the top of this pool.
Ooh, that's hot take number 3.
I don't know if that's necessarily a hot take.
I don't think that's a hot.
South Africa did just beat New Zealand in this rugby championship.
So they won the rugby championship, but they drew with New Zealand.
But I gotta say, I was showing this Instagram to Ethan now that despite losing the rugby championship, I think the last 2 Rugby World Cups.
Yeah, we posted about this.
Yeah, New Zealand lose. Yeah,
it's a different
they
squad
lost
out
the
of
rugby
New Zealand
championship
this year, though. It's a much different personnel group. So I can't say 100% with full confidence that the group that New Zealand is bringing in, their 31, is as resilient as the group in 2015 or the group in 2011. I don't know if that resilience to mentally is as intensively confident in their own abilities as it was in those last 2.
I think that another thing is they don't have the same leadership as they did previously.
No, they don't.
So, but my big query with New Zealand, at least this with this squad, is their midfield. The four that Steve Hansen picked was Sonny Bill, Brian Crotty, Jack Goodhue, and Anton Leonard-Brown as their centers, and they don't put Nani Laumape, the prolific scorer in the Super Rugby. I'm a little mad about that because I'm a big Nani Laumape fan, but I don't know why he would pass him up.
So I was reading a bit about this because I was interested as well. He's been doing lots of scoring in Super Rugby, and basically Steve Hansen, head coach, said that he felt Antoine Leonard-Brown fit in the squad. It wasn't so much against Laumape. He felt that in the midfield with Goodhue or Crotty and Sonny Bill, he felt that Antoine Leonard-Brown was the player for him.
So he felt like it was more of an attitude / play style feel.
It wasn't a skills thing. He said Laumape obviously is a prolific scorer, but he felt that Antoine Leonard-Brown would get the job done for his side. But
I can understand that reasoning. I know for a fact in Clemson rugby history that there's been selections where a player has been dropped from the starting roster or even the subs roster because the captains and the coach believed that another player had a better attitude and a better ability to work with the people around him on the field. So that does not surprise me that really stands out as a primary reasoning.
Another thing is we need to see if Ryan Crotty stays healthy.
yes,
That's all I gotta see. Like if he stays healthy, then fantastic. But I think if he gets hurt or something like that, that might have been a poor decision. But we should move on to South Africa. Again, everybody talks about New Zealand when it comes to World Cup times, but now with South Africa being set, the other group or
before we specifically talk about South Africa, I want to know who each of you out of those two teams would expect to be on top. Because personally, I think South Africa takes it. I think South Africa, not much has changed from their test group to their World Cup group. And they looked great during the warm-up test matches, and they looked great in the world or the championship. I think they're coming into this World Cup at a peak, at a good progression.
Yeah.
See, this is tough for me because if this is probably the group that I'm having the toughest time, we're trying to figure out who's going to come in on top. Obviously, South Africa just had a very solid warm-up compared to New Zealand. But again, historically, New Zealand always slumps before the World Cup. They slumped before the 2015. Australia beat them. Can't remember if South Africa did then.
I think it was Australia beat them.
And then they came out and won it all.
Same thing happened in 2011 too.
Same thing happened in 2011. It's so that's why.
You think they're going to come out with the fire?
They're three-time winners. It's hard to deny them. Yeah, I think I'm going to stick with Tyler. I think New Zealand edge them in this group.
Okay. All right.
I'm gonna join you guys too, just because I think New Zealand is that kind of team who's able to make up some kind of master plan. So I think that they'll be able to think of some kind of game plan before the game, and also they're very dynamic, so they can change one up depending on South Africa. So I think it's possible.
Okay.
I will say, if South Africa ends up being New Zealand in group play, it really isn't going to come to me as a shocker. I think it's going to be an incredibly close game, and I really hope it is. That's
because
I want that game to end in a 2-point difference or a 3-point difference.
Well,
just really good rugby, 80 minutes of hard competition, and it comes down to the last few moments of just who's willing to work harder.
Exactly. The last three matches between those guys have been within 3 points. So I think the fourth one will be the same.
So all of y'all believe that New Zealand will be one in this pool?
Yes.
And I'm assuming that means South Africa will be 2.
Yes. So do we have anything to say for the last 3 between Italy, Namibia, and Canada?
I would be, so because of the development with the MLR and because of the development of higher level rugby in the United States and in Canada, trying to develop a better game from them, I could see Canada doing better this year than any previous year.
Yes.
Yeah, and you look at you read about interviews with Kingsley Jones, the head coach of Canada, and he was saying that this squad has been slowly creeping up on USA. Because you look in the past, USA demolishes Canada, but now they're getting a lot closer.
And I know, especially at the youth level, the Canadian under-20 team have been consistently beating the U.S. under-20 team.
Yeah.
Coming up. So it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, being Canadian, I really want them to do well. Although I don't have enough faith to have them coming out of this group. I think they have an excellent chance of beating Namibia, and if they come out hard against Italy, it could come away with a result, although I think Italy with...
That game
Is
has
that a hot take?
big,
I don't know.
big repercussions for Italy, I believe, because
Yeah.
a huge population that I have spoken to and that I've heard things on the internet from around the world that people believe Italy does not deserve to be the sixth team in the Six Nations. And if Canada comes out and they beat Italy, a lot of people are going to look at that as reasoning as to why Italy shouldn't be there. And so I think that's a lot. It's a lot of pressure on the Italian side and a lot of mental like stress from their coach, Connor O'Shea.
Connor O'Shea. So hot take number 4, Canada beats Italy. That's what I'm hearing, boys.
That's not a hot take.
Yeah, I
I
believe.
don't think Canada will, but I think it's going to be a closer game than people expect.
I think it'll be close. Obviously, like what you're saying, Italy has to win against Canada
And Namibia.
They have to. I don't think anyone's expecting them to win against New Zealand or South Africa, especially with their track record just in the Six Nations in the past World Cup cycle.
Exactly.
But if they want to stay, kind of, in my opinion, as a Tier 1 nation, they need to win.
Yeah, you have to prove that you belong in the Tier 1 group. So
a couple of things for Italy, a couple of facts at least. Sergio Parise, their golden boy, the captain, the leader. This is his 5th World Cup.
Yeah, he's getting up there.
This is his 5th. He's only equaling Richie McCaw for most World Cups.
Because genuinely, out of everyone on the Italian side, like, who's as consistently good as a player in relative to the other Italian players? Nobody has outlasted him with consistent stats year to year as a player.
He is their like world class player.
Yeah, he's a rock to them. Like they can always rely on him on the field. Even in games where Italy's getting crushed, like Sergio just comes out and he's like still plays hard, still plays well. Like it's not an issue of what he's doing on the field. It's always an issue of who's around him and what they're doing.
exactly.
And again, Italy only have 8 players on their entire squad who have World Cup.
My question with this, and I don't know, I know for a fact I am not researched enough in this particular portion of their 8 players playing in the World Cup. Is it because they're a young squad, or is it because those players have fallen off from high-level rugby?
I believe they've been giving younger players a chance. I know they're 10. Tommaso Allen, he's pretty young, and he's really excelled in the Six Nations and throughout their game. That one of their centers, Campagnaro, I know he was not, or he obviously was old enough, but he didn't make the 2015 squad, and he's been really excellent in the midfield for them. So I think they do have a lot of young players, and then obviously Sergio is the glue, the experience, the guy they look up to.
So do you believe that this team should be looking forward to the 2023 World Cup? Do you think they have enough players of that younger group that can find their gel and build a better squad, and they're actually looking further in the future and using this as a experience booster?
I think right now, with how they've been in the past, I don't know if the next World Cup is what they should be looking for. I think it's the next Six Nations.
Okay.
And
Yeah. I can agree with that. I can understand what you are
just about it. They are a young squad. They have 3 players with over 100 caps, and then everyone else is sitting around the sub 50. There's only one other player who has 58 caps, and I'm going to butcher his name, Tomasu Benavinti. He's one of their centers. I'm sorry for that pronunciation, but everyone else is sub 50 caps with a couple of players that only have like 1 cap or even 8 caps, sub 10. So it's a young team, and this is going to be a great experience for them. For that, and they're going to be. It's the future of Italian rugby is what we're going to see at this World Cup. But I don't know if the next World Cup is
what they should be
focusing on right now. I think it's improving their play, proving that they still deserve to be in the Six Nations, really.
And bringing it a little bit even closer, not quite.
Just small increments for them.
Yeah, small increments. Okay.
And then.
So we haven't really talked about Namibia, but
there's not a lot.
There's not much. Have they ever won a World Cup game? I can't recall it.
They are 0 for 19.
Okay, yeah. So I don't think that's going to change this year. And I know that sounds awful and it's a harsh thing to say, but I mean, we discussed it. Canada, their young group is on a upswing for their program, and they've been developing in these last 4 years, like professional rugby.
MLR, yeah.
Yeah, in the MLR, and I don't like if they were going to win a game, I think Namibia would beat Canada, and I don't think that's going to happen.
The only player I think who can give Phil Davis's side a actual chance is Eugene Yantis, and listen to this: he's the only person in the squad who, at scrum half, played against the Springboks in 2007. So in 2007, when they played, the final score was 105-13. He's the only player in the squad to actually have been in there, and he's a good scrum half to look at, as well as Johan Dijssel, their captain. He's the only one to score a try against the All Blacks in the 2015 World Cup.
So what you're telling me is that one of the players to watch was played in a game in more of his prime 12 years ago. And
yeah, so that if that doesn't say a whole lot about Namibia's side.
Yeah. Okay. So let's. I think we can round it off on that one. Obviously, none of us really have that much of a positive outlook for a few of these teams in how they're going to come out. But yeah, I'll start it off this time. I think it's going to be South Africa, New Zealand, and then Italy, Canada, Namibia.
So for me, it's New Zealand, South Africa, Italy, Canada, Namibia.
I'm the same as CJ.
I have to agree with CJ
three
and Tommy.
people.
And also, I do want to say one thing that we haven't talked about is if Ireland wins their group, they will be playing the winner of Group B, if I'm not wrong. Is that correct?
If they win their group, they'll play the runner-up.
They play the runner-up.
So they will be playing either New Zealand or South Africa. That is their.
I know we're not going to get into
we're not going to get into
I know we're not getting there, but I just want to put that
Ireland's
out there.
not making it out of quarterfinals. So moving on to Group C.
Group C.
No, nothing.
Yeah. So Group C, you've got England, France, Argentina, the United States of America, and Tonga.
Yeah. So this for me would be my group of death.
I agree.
Yeah.
You've got 3 Tier 1 nations, and the United States, and then Tonga. So it's a tough group. It's a really tough group, and so I'm really interested in this group. I think England would probably be my favorite team to come out of this group on
what
top.
I like to hear.
But again, Argentina had some strong performances in the Rugby Championship. I know they lost all the matches, but there were times when they were really fighting in those matches. They gave Australia a really tough game, but South Africa were able to dominate them. But I think they might have a good chance to
get the number 2 spot.
Get number 2, and it's the World Cup, as I keep saying. Anything could happen. But
I think that number 2 spot's between France and Argentina.
Ooh. So to me, Argentina, they play in a full 80-minute game every game they play. They don't have the tendency to give up in the 60th minute and say they've lost this game. Every single person on their team and on their roster is the kind of person who says, I will play a 90-minute game of rugby in 80 minutes, no matter what the score is or what the outcome is.
Tyler's ready to say something.
I was ready.
But there's a thing that I know Tyler and I have talked about previous, where their ability to beat Northern Hemisphere teams is almost non-existent.
It's not. They in the past World Cup cycle, I'm pretty sure we looked through all 4 years.
Yeah, we did.
They were not able to beat a Northern Hemisphere team on any of the tours. Just recently, in the last year, so I think it was 2018, they played against France.
Yeah.
And that's when France really wasn't looking so hot, and France was still able to win against Argentina. So for me, I have England first and then France second. I just don't think Argentina has the track record against these Northern Hemisphere teams to pull it out. I think it's going to be some good games. Like you said, Argentina's they're going to play their heart out for the full 80. They're going to give it all they got, and I love watching Argentina. They're fun to watch because of that, but I just don't know if they can pull it out.
And I think Argentina, I'm going to have to disagree slightly. I think Argentina has an advantage because it's something crazy, like 71% of their players play together at the club level. They play for the Jaguares, the Super Rugby team. And so they have a team chemistry that a lot of other teams don't get. And I know they don't have the track record on tour matches, but in the past World Cup, they beat Ireland in the.
My thing is with this is play at the professional level and play at the international level is not the same. It's especially when you get like all the teams in the Six Nations, like each they play 5 games internationally. Then most of these teams consistently go on Southern Hemisphere tours, and so a lot of these teams, like you look at Owen Farrell, he's played with England for a very long time, and he's had a very similar group. Like we were talking before the podcast started with Farrell and Ford, and how they would just like you could insert them both at 10, and you could insert them at 12, and it's like that chemistry is there for a lot of these teams that they're going to face, and I don't see the club level chemistry being so intense that it's going to outshine the fact that international rugby is a different beast.
Now I will say, France, as we all know, is France. That's
the French are the French.
How else to put it?
How enlightening.
They show some flashes of brilliance. They were leading on Wales, who just won the Grand Slam.
Right. Yeah.
At halftime, ended up what was it? I think it was 16-0 at halftime, something like that. Wales ended up coming back and beating them, and then they proceeded to get obliterated by England. It wasn't even close. It was 40-3. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, like you said, the French are French. It seems like at halftime they all just go smoke a cigarette and drink some coffee and then go home.
Well, yeah,
wow, that was a bit insinuative.
That was
that was a tough.
And it's odd watching France because in their warm-up matches against Scotland, as we said earlier, they played the first one and they beat them 32-3. Absolutely dominant. Their forwards were doing all the hard work, crushing Scotland, and then the return leg, they lose. I mean, Scotland obviously had a better game, but it's that change from 1 week you look at them and you go, wow, this team could be world beaters, and then the next week you go, well, who are these guys in blue uniforms, and where did you put the French team? Like
what I see with France as an issue for them is I don't think their starting 15 or up to probably 17 players who could be their starters. I think that their level of play on those 15 to 17 players is just higher than the rest of the people on their roster. I genuinely think it's a depth issue. Because I think they played a good game in the first half against Wales, and then when they started rolling subs in, like that force and intensity and fight that they had, like it rolled away. It genuinely it fell off.
So you don't think they have the depth to close out the matches that they start, that the other teams have better finishers and can game manage better than France can? Yeah.
I genuinely think it's subs. I think they don't have an impact as much as these other teams do.
And it was in that Wales game. I watched that game live this year, and it was as if a completely different side came out of the locker room. They were just clumsy, careless. The back three for France didn't look like they'd ever played as a back three before, because the wings were always up in the line, and there was just acres of space in behind them. And so it'll be interesting to see if they can hold it together for 70, even, and hopefully the whole 80 minutes. But
So what do you boys think about England with this next World? I know Ethan's got a lot to say about England, so I just wanted to put that on
I'm going to keep it kind of short. I'm a little bit biased, but I have England winning out this pool.
Yeah. Well,
The only game I could see them losing is to France, and at this point in time, I don't see France beating England.
I think I have to agree with you with England winning out. They're finally back in that form, that post-2015, new Eddie Jones, just absolutely. They're not at that level, obviously, of tying the world record for most matches won in a row. But they're looking like that team again, than that mid-slump where they went 1-5 in the Six Nations.
But what happened in the last World Cup to England? Exactly.
Yep.
Although I think that the England side's going to use that as motivation, because that was embarrassing, like genuinely embarrassing for a program that's won World Cup before.
And it was at home.
And it was it was in England. And that was like taking the wound, just like pulling it open and then just like pouring salt in. And I genuinely believe they're going to look at that as their drive to make sure that never happens again.
Yeah, they've changed up a couple of the players. They've brought in some explosive backline players. They've had a couple. I know Manu Tuolangi is an absolute monster.
Absolutely.
He had a heck of a game against
Ireland in that warm-up match.
Got size as well as speed.
And that's what I think they've started leaning towards. I know they brought in a new wing, Joe Kakanasinga, who is an absolute unit of a winger. I think he's something like 6'4", 250 pounds, just a monster out there. And I know against Ireland in that warm-up match, he was terrorizing the Irish defensive line. I know Jacob Stockdale had an absolute nightmare of a match trying to defend him.
So going back to Manu, I think he's one of the key players that will make England a fantastic side if he is well behaved and if he stays healthy, because he's had issues with both in the past. But like we said, he's a monster of a player. And then on top of that, Eddie Jones has the experience to win. So, again, he coached the Japan side, last World Cup to a win against South Africa. He was a technical assistant or a technical advisor for the Springboks in 2007 when they won the World Cup. And then on top of that, he even coached, or he was the head coach of the Wallabies in 2001 when they beat New Zealand in the semifinal and then went on to go play England in the final of the World Cup, obviously losing to England. But I think he's got the coaching mentality and the right organization, I guess, and the right mindset to have his players win. So
that's true. He has the pedigree. He's experienced when it comes to the World Cup, so I think they're gonna look good, and I think they're gonna win out.
Yeah, I see. For me, my key players come from Billy Vunipola and Sam Underhill in the forwards.
Oh, Sam Underhill. Oh.
By the way, what's up with
Love him.
I love Sam Underhill, but I am also, not only am I rooting for England, but I am also at heart a Bath fan, so there's a lot of bias towards that decision.
So what's up with England having how many, 2 tight head props in their squad? Is it only 2 of them that they have Vunipola and
Marco Vunipola.
Yeah,
not
Vunipola.
Billy Vunipola.
Yeah, not Billy, obviously, but It's him and who else at tight head, because they.
Is it Dan Cole or is he?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's Dan. So they only have Dan Cole and Mako Vunapola, and which is kind of surprising.
I think
You only have
I
two.
think it's hedging the bets. Like they're strong, they're healthy, they're sturdy, and they're relatively experienced in their abilities at this level of play. And I think it's genuinely hedging his bets on them lasting in the tournament.
And then another thing is 2 scrum halves.
Only 2.
Only
Yeah.
2. Ben Youngs and Willie Hines, which, Willie Hines, his first cap was only a couple weeks ago.
He only has 4 caps.
Yeah, exactly. So, interesting moves by Eddie Jones. So, we are an American podcast, American rugby podcast. We have to talk about America. So, what do we have to say? What do you boys have to say?
Well, I think this USA team is looking a lot better than they have in the past. We have MLR now. It's just got done, or not just, but 2 years in now. Looking solid. Gotta love it. They're looking a lot better than they did going into the last World Cup, in my opinion. So I don't think that they're gonna really upset anybody. But I think I think they'll win over Tonga. And I think that'll be good to see. So I'm excited I think they'll play well against the other teams in their pool. So I'm excited to see them, but I don't expect huge things. That's
Going off of nothing but faith, I have no statistics
boy.
to back this
No
up.
facts.
I want the U.S. and I think they will beat France or Argentina. That
Hot
is
take.
nothing
take.
but faith.
Oh boy.
I
That's nothing
Yeah,
but
that's
a
it's a
scalding hot
it's a
take.
bold claim.
It is the boldest claim that I have for this World Cup, and that's just because personally I want to see the U.S. do well. I've seen the development in professional level with the MLR. I've seen like the bringing over of some sevens crossovers in just like positivity with the program, and I just like
Growth, development.
I want to see that development just go
Further with it.
further with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to see them beat Argentina. I want to see them beat France. And although like you're shaking your head with immense frustration
I
at me,
want-
that is my hot take faith off of nothing but faith.
You need to
There is
understand,
no
I want
stats
to
to prove
see
that other than Argentina hasn't beat a Northern Hemisphere team, and we are technically Northern Hemisphere.
I want to say,
Ouch.
I want to say this. I want to see the USA win. That's something I think we all want. We're all Americans here. We're
Well,
some American
Apart from
Tom.
Tom.
That's all right. No, I'd like to see the U.S. do well as well.
I mean, I want to see them do it. I just don't think they will.
Yeah,
It would be a very pleasant surprise for me, and I will be very ecstatic if they prove me wrong. But I just don't think that they will.
I think that depending on who plays, is a very big factor. Because I know Sean Davies, we've been talking, Tyler and I have very strong opinions about Sean Davies. He's kind of the face of USA Rugby, and I think that's why he's the starting 9. But he's very slow. He's been very slow when it comes to getting that ball out from rucks, and I'm kind of disappointed. So when we played Canada last weekend, in our 20-15 win, Nate Augsburger was our 9, and he was pretty fast at getting that ball out. He might not be as good when it comes to kicking, but he's pretty good. And then on top of that, Joe Talafete.
Yeah, they've got some stars lined up. As you said, Joe, he's the hooker, I believe.
Yes.
Highest
Scoring hooker.
Yeah, highest scoring hooker. I think ever, is it? Or he has
Yeah,
some
ever.
ridiculous
International rugby.
statistics. He's 23 caps, something like 20 or 22 tries. He is an absolute monster of a hooker, and that he runs just the hardest of hard lines, straight through people.
He's a bull. He runs angry.
Oh,
What
that
I'm
man
looking
runs
for,
furious.
What I'm looking for out of the United States side is those experienced players to have good, strong consistency, and I want them to just be able to, like, if things aren't going well, reinvigorate those younger guys, those less capped players. So like I want to see guys like Eric Fry, who's up in the 40s with his caps, or even because Sean Davies has like the age, even though his caps are not near as high as Eric Fry's, but like his just consistency, his face, his sturdiness in the sport. I want that to be something that everybody else will learn from on the field, and I think that's what will help give the drive. And another name like Cam Dolan, like,
Yeah.
I mean, he's up there. He's got the experience at an international level, so why not let these guys just like provide comfort and responsibility and an attitude coming in, and I think that's why like U.S. could end up is in a better position than people think they're coming in. So yeah, Tyler's over there shaking his head, but
I mean, like you say, like those experienced players, like Blaine Scully's, the Cam Dolans, Ben Landry's, they definitely have a boost to the team. But I think the biggest boost is that MLR, like the MLR experience, and that development with pro guys is definitely a helpful part. And then AJ McGinty, player to watch, plays for Sales Sharks, great player, a great ball distributor.
Yeah, U.S. fly half. He looks good to manage the game for them in the backfield.
He was a real key player when the United States beat Scotland in Houston earlier this year. So,
I think one thing that we still haven't mentioned yet is crossover from sevens. So we have Ben Finkelman and Martin
Yosefo.
So obviously those two, right now it's showing they only have one cap because this is 15s, it's not sevens. But they are from, they have the experience. They've been playing in the sevens national team. They've played internationally. They're on, the series. They've played in the sevens World Cup. They've been in the limelight, And so I think that's going to be huge for the USA team and the younger players that are coming in is to have that backing, and they kind of know what it's like to be in a pressure situation like this. While they may not have the same amount of 15s experience, I think it's still going to carry over well with that experience and just kind of help bring this USA squad a little closer together and boost it up.
But between having some of those sevens guys who understand success in the rugby world, who understand how to look for space and build like a heavy, strong attack towards space is important. And then with MLR, like across U.S. and Canada, it's in the 20s of players that are in the MLR. So that just like by definition shows like that rugby in North America has a stronger foundation coming into this World Cup, since they're pulling guys who are now getting the opportunity to play at a professional level with guys filling spots from international countries to help lift up the local play even more. Mm-hmm. So those two things are key for the United States. I think that's pretty much everything for the U.S. We covered a lot, so
I think.
Well, last but not least, we haven't talked Tonga.
Yeah. So Tonga, they're obviously another one of the Pacific nations sides, but they had their last warm-up match was against New Zealand, and that was just carnage. New Zealand were just too fast, too physical, and Tonga made far too many mistakes for me. I believe that the U.S. has an excellent chance to beat Tonga, and I don't see them getting any results from any of the teams in this group. They were exploited in that New Zealand game. I think the final score was something like 88 or 92 to nothing. They had no points, no penalties. So I'm not saying that'll happen in the World Cup, but I don't see them taking many points.
Yeah. I'd have to agree with you. I think Tonga versus USA is, for those two teams, that's going to be the closest match. I know Ethan thinks USA could beat Argentina. our hot take for
Hot
him.
take, faith. It's all in faith.
I don't see it. I think USA versus Tonga is going to be the closest match for those two teams, and I'll be excited for that match. That'll be a fun one to look forward to.
2 players I will say for Tonga that are good to look out for is I'm going to butcher this. Sonatane Takula. He's their number 9 and their goal kicker. He's a very good player in giving them like a little bit more fire and zip into everything, as well as Talusa Vianu, I guess. He has an incredible step to die for, and I think between those 2 players in the back line, he'll be very they'll be very like, what's the word? Dynamic.
Yeah, dynamic.
Okay, so Tom, you start off this time.
So
what is your order?
So I agree. England, top of this group, and I'm gonna have Argentina finish above France. I think England and Argentina are gonna make it out. And then to follow up, I think it'll probably end up France, USA, and Tonga finishing bottom.
See,
Doolittle.
I think it will be England and then France. I just don't see Argentina doesn't have a track record, and I think France can pull it out. And so after that, I have Argentina, USA, Tonga.
So I'm a big fan of Argentina. Big fan. Big fan.
I know.
I love the Jaguares. And again, like 71% are from the Jaguares. I'm a big fan of them. They have some of my favorite players play for that. It's like Augustin Creve, Bautista Del Gui. Both of those players are really good. Lavanini. All those players.
Matera is my favorite.
Yeah, Pablo Matera is really good.
I think he plays 7 for them. Captained them in their last warm-up match. He's an absolute unit of a guy. Gets in a massive amount of
that's
defense.
So who's your pick?
So that's why I'm saying England number 1, Argentina number 2,
Excellent.
Okay.
then France, USA, Tonga.
Good choice. Excellent choice.
So I'm gonna say England number 1, France number 2, because I have to sit with Tyler on that one. I don't see the track record. I don't see the evidence in their success against Northern Hemisphere teams. And then Argentina, United States, Tonga. Even though I have faith, I'm not going to make that as a prediction that the United States will be over Argentina.
Okay, so on to Group D.
Yeah.
Group D. So teams are Australia, Wales, Georgia, Fiji, and Uruguay. So I think it's safe to say in this group, Wales and Australia are going to be the 1 and 2. The only thing is which one's going to be 1 and which one's going to be 2.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Although, to me, I as much as it pains me, since I'm rooting for England, to say this, I genuinely think Wales is a more definite thought to be 1 than Australia. I mean, they've shown out. They had the Grand Slam earlier this year. Their test matches, for the most part, went in their favor, other than their 1 loss to England, and that was in England. But as soon as that went back into Wales for their home match, that's when they won it. So now it's going to be a neutral ground against all the teams they play in their pool, and I don't really see Australia beating Wales in its current state.
I'd have to agree with that. I have it written down. Wales is my expected winner of this group. They had an incredible Six Nations, obviously. They have probably the best defense in the world. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I would agree with
confident
that.
to say that.
Statistically, they
Statistically, they have the best. And Australia they haven't looked like the team they used to be over the course of this World Cup cycle. They were able to beat New Zealand. They did that before the 2015 World Cup and ended up losing to New Zealand in the World Cup final. So I don't know how much that really means. We talked about that when we talked about New Zealand.
Do you think Australia is going to be missing Izzy Folau?
Oh, definitely.
Not only do I think that's a hindrance to their quality of play, in terms of skill on the field, but also like as a program, as Australia Rugby, like having the whole Israel Folau situation so heavily on the front end of rugby news for the last however long now, like it has to be draining to the program, to the coaches, to the management. Like it's got to be stressful for everybody a part of that program just to be worried and dealing with that situation. And I don't want to get into the politics behind that. I just want to say that like having something that's so big name news in the rugby world has got to be draining on everybody a part of the program.
Yeah, definitely. It's a side distraction for the guys who are in the squad right now, and you don't want to be focusing on that when you've got a World Cup to prepare for. But despite that, I'm going to have to disagree with Wales winning this group.
Really?
I think Australia top the group, and I think Wales are the favorites for second, but I would currently take Australia over Wales. I think, yes, Wales, statistically, they are the best defensive team, and it is really hard to break them down. But I think they're having trouble finding backline players to score them points. I think the Australian defense is good enough to stop the Welsh pack, but currently they don't have a 10. The player they had been playing for a while, Gareth Anson, just got hurt, and so I don't think he's going to be back in time. They have Dan Bigger, who is very experienced for them, but he has been trading time with Reece Patchell, and so I just don't think they quite have that consistency in the backfield to get it out to their wingers who are explosive. Those guys are world-class finishers. Liam Williams, I know, is in there, and Halfpenny's at 15, and George North is on there. But I think they were exposed a little bit by England in that warm-up match, and then they lost twice in a row once in Wales, once in Ireland in the warm-up matches. So I know they weren't fielding quite their full side for both of those matches, but it was pretty close to full. And so I think Australia, who, yes, they had that big loss to New Zealand, but they also had that big win, the largest margin of victory win over New Zealand. So I think Australia might have an edge over Wales in this one, but I would not be surprised if it went the other way.
So my question for you, because I'm actually interested in some of the semantics of where you see this game between those two teams playing out. Do you think it'll be low scoring because you believe that Wales doesn't have the attacking intensity to beat a lower quality defensive side from Australia, and then Australia just will have the higher attacking structure to where but the defensive structure from Wales is strong enough to hold them off?
Yeah, I think this game could come down to points, goal kicking. I don't think you're going to see one side score a massive number of tries over the other one. I think it could end up being about 25-20 to Australia. So it'll probably be average scoring. I think you might see a try here or there off broken play. But I think if both of these sides set up their defense, it's going to be hard for either one to break the other one down. I think the Welsh defense is too good for the Australian attack, but I think the Australians, just from the week in, week out, having to play New Zealand, they know how to stop skillful backline play, and so it'll be interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if Wales win, but I have Australia over them.
And Australia also have a star-studded squad. Michael Hooper, David Pocock, Barnard Foley, Reece Hodge. All these players, you've heard in and out all the time. Kurtley Beale is another great player.
And I like one of their new centers, James O'Connor. He played one match for them in 2016, and they brought him back into the squad in the New Zealand tests, and he was exceptional for them. So I think he's one to watch. But yeah, they've got some star-studded talent. Kurtley Beale obviously has been a rock at the back for them. So
do we have so there's Georgia, Fiji, and Uruguay are kind of left over. So,
Not much could be said about all three of these teams. Georgia, insane forwards. They all play as if they're all rhinos. They're strong, or headstrong. They're very tough play. It's almost like they're out to murder somebody out there. It seems.
So for me, Georgia is the team that people believe should replace Italy in the Six Nations. So I see Georgia in that state where it's like they're going to be good competition for Australia and Wales, but it's going to be one of those situations where I don't think they're going to win. So to me, they're the third place team in this pool.
So, and then Fiji, I think that's true. They could be the third place, but fourth place between Uruguay and Fiji. I'm going to put Fiji just because of the athleticism. They're big players. They're big, and they you look at this. It's similar to their seven side. Their seven side are huge players, very athletic. They like to, they love these crazy offloads. And they translate over that to 15s. Is that a good thing? I don't know, because again, it's two different games, but they are probably the most in terms of size, athletic ability maybe, and physicality. I think they're one of the best sides. But apart from that, they have a lot of.
I think they struggle structurally. I think they've got a lot of guys who can ball handle very well, but as a unit and as a whole team, I think they show some gaps structurally. So
agreed. And Uruguay, is there?
Yeah, they perform pretty well in the America's Cups most of the time. I think they're one of the better South American teams. But yeah, I think Georgia will probably get the win. It'll be close between Uruguay and Fiji. It'll be whether the Fijians can last the whole match. If they can, I think they'd win. But I think Uruguay might.
They sit at the bottom of the pack in this.
Yeah,
I would say to me they sit in the bottom of the pack for the whole World Cup.
So, but for
arguably,
I would say Fiji, Uruguay. I would say Uruguay or Tonga. I'd probably have Tonga slightly below them. But
my thing with Uruguay is, a lot of them come from MLR sides. So a lot of them come from the MLR sides, and they have that experience. And what happened with the Uruguayan Air Force flight when it crashed back in 1972, that kind of history, I really would love it if Uruguay could pull something out. But unfortunately, they're not the side that we all want or that they need to be. So,
okay.
All right, let's wrap. So Group D, what are we all saying, Ethan?
Group D, I have Wales, Australia, Georgia, Fiji, Uruguay.
Tyler?
I have Wales, Australia. We say Georgia, Fiji, and Uruguay.
And Tom?
I'm gonna have to say it's Australia, Wales, and then I go Georgia third, and Fiji, Uruguay. I think that's fair.
That's fair. So, we're gonna go on to our last portion. Mine.
Yeah, you gotta.
All right, well,
give yours
fine.
as well.
I'm gonna agree with Tom. Australia over Wales. Australia, Wales, Georgia, Fiji, Uruguay.
Yeah,
That's wrong.
I think that's a safe bet.
Well, we'll find out in a couple weeks. I guess.
Yeah. So we're gonna do our final segment. We're gonna do a little bit of other predictions. So we're going to go down the table. Give me, who do you think is going to be the best in pool phase? Who do you think is going to be the best team and player? And then who do you think is going to be the most disappointing team? And then who do you think it could be potential blowout scorer?
So let's start with best player.
So I want it since Nani Laumape is not in the squad. I put him down as probably going to be the best player in the tournament. And now he's not in there. I'm very, very mad. So if that's the case, I'm going to go with maybe Johnny Sexton. Johnny Sexton, I think, could be the best player in the pool phase, depending on how Ireland plays. Plus, I think their group is not as hard as some of the other ones, so Johnny Sexton could potentially go off.
Yeah, he could exploit that. Yeah, no, that's a good prediction. Tyler,
I'm gonna have to go with. I love Ben Smith. If we're talking best fullbacks in the world, I think for me it's between Stuart Hogg and Ben Smith. That's where I usually go to, and I think Ben Smith is just one of the most consistent players you'll find, and I'm going to have to go with Ben Smith. I think he's going to show up, and he's just going to do well, and he's going to do what he does.
So I'm going to have to lean Rico Ioane. He's one of the best wings in the world right now, and he knows how to score tries. New Zealand know how to score tries. I know he exploded onto the stage in the last Lions tour, and he's been a consistent wing for them. So he's going to have a handful of tries, I'm sure.
So I guess I'm last. I've been struggling with this question so heavily, and my bias has leaned me towards an England player, of course. And I think Elliot Daly is going to be...
Daly? That came out of nowhere.
No. We didn't talk about him earlier.
He is...
I think he makes one of the biggest impacts in every game.
He's one of the fastest guys at this World Cup.
For sure. And I think England's going to benefit from broken play that I think will happen a lot during a team like France or a lot from a team like Argentina. And he's just going to be able to swoop in and present his abilities in the pools.
If we're going biased opinions, Jacob Stockdale is definitely about to sweep up. No. I mean, but he is one of the. He's another great wing, and he had 2 against Wales. But no, I'll stick with Ioane. I think he's gonna do it.
So then, who do you guys think is going to be the best in the pool phase?
Best team.
Best team overall.
So just during the pool phase, right?
Yeah.
I'll go first.
Yeah, you want to go first?
I'll go first this time. Don't worry, CJ. I got this one.
All right.
I think England's going to do the best. They're probably, out of all the groups, I think there's no doubt in my mind that they're going to win their pool. That's, for me, what I see. Yeah. Hopefully they don't prove me wrong. I want to see them do well. So for me, it's going to be England. I know France could give them some trouble, but I know they've handled Argentina well in the past, and USA and Tonga really aren't going to give them any trouble, and they shouldn't. So I'm going to have to say England.
Ethan, what about you?
I'm, shockingly enough, I'm not picking England.
Oh,
wow. My eye is on South Africa. I think as a unit, they've gelled well during the warm-ups. And I think that they're going to come out and as a team, and they're going to perform at the highest play that they can possibly at this point. And that's why, we're not really getting into it, but personally, I see South Africa being able to go all the way from what I've seen in the last few months.
Interesting.
So as Ethan didn't take the opportunity, I think Ireland are... No. But I do think... I don't think they're going to do anything too flashy. I don't think they're going to run away with any of their games, but I think they're just going to be solid, consistent, get the points they need, move on. So they're my best team in the group play.
My best team in the group play will
You say
steal
Japan.
everybody's hearts. They might not win their group.
No.
Listen to me, ladies and gentlemen. They might not win their group, but they will steal your heart. Japan will be the best in the pool phases.
He said Japan.
They will bring everybody to their TVs to watch, just because Japan will be the heart stealer for everybody. They'll become your favorite team by the end of the pool phase.
So do you think, relative to where we think they are, they'll do the best? Or do you think just overall?
I think...
Because my attitude is overall best team throughout the pool phase. That's my prediction.
Overall-
are you saying the best team according to the expectations set for them?
Yes, I think that'll according to their the expectations given them. Everybody's expecting, maybe third in their group, but I think quarterfinals they will steal your hearts. They will play some fantastic rugby. They might not be the top of their group, but I think they'll steal hearts and be a good team.
It's going to be very unfortunate on Friday when they lose to Russia. So.
Ouch.
Yeah, then my entire takes.
Yeah, I'll be
are
watching
gone.
that on the bus to class.
So what about most disappointing team?
So for me, it's really sad to say it. I think it's going to be, if it's going to be anyone, I think it'll be Scotland.
Wow.
That's a tough one for me.
Are you saying that Japan could potentially beat them and go over them?
All right, CJ. All right.
I'm just saying to where I think they'll be able to beat Japan. I think it's going to be a closer match than what I think it will be. So that's the only team I'm really worried about for the Tier 1. I think that where they're at right now, that they should be able to perform at a level higher than Japan. But I think Japan's really going to give them some problems. I think they'll come out on top, but I think it'll just be a little bit disappointing to see. And so that's who I have.
My most disappointing team. Even though I did say Johnny Sexton could be the player of the pool phase, I think Ireland could be the most disappointing.
Ouch.
They in the past they've shown some greatness, but it could potentially happen that they could be disappointing,
In the quarterfinal exit, is that what you're predicting, CJ?
The quarterfinal exit's almost inevitable.
Well, right now we're saying,
Right now, it's just pools.
It's just
pool
pools,
phase
but yeah.
performance.
I still think they're going to be disappointing because their games are going to be a lot closer than what people want.
So do you believe that they won't get all of the extra points that they need and all that in the pool phase? Do you think that they could, even if they do win it out, it won't be as beautiful or as crisp as what it could be?
Yeah, so I think that they probably will have a lot of nail biters. So they'll have a lot of, I think they'll be a lot closer than people think. And maybe you never know, Japan or one of the other teams could potentially run up a little bit of score on them.
So for me, it's a coin toss between France and Wales, my disappointing teams. But I think Wales could have the most to disappoint me with, being Grand Slam champions, and then
World number one at some point.
Yeah, world number one not 2 weeks ago.
And now they're fourth?
Yeah, now they're fourth. I think they've got a lot of hype build around them. So that they're for me the team that could disappoint me the most.
Okay, interesting. I see where you're coming from because I see they do, as a team, have the farthest to fall with what's been built up around them recently. But to me, I think that my team that I expect to be the most disappointing in their performance is France.
Yeah.
I think France is going to be as shoddy in their performance during the World Cup as they were in their warm-ups.
Yeah.
And I think that, my argument was earlier, I don't think they have the depth that a lot of these other rosters do in their 31. And so their ability to last the whole tournament, I don't see them getting to their fourth game in pool phase and performing just like they did in game one.
Very hot and cold.
Yeah.
CJ said.
So, yeah. On that note, we are finished with our pool predictions. Mm-hmm. So, thank you for listening through, and we want to hear everything that you have to say about your pool predictions. So please leave them in the comments and let us know who you have winning each pool and who your biggest expectations are for and who you expect to not perform.
And as always, we'd like to say thanks to Tiger Vision for giving us the facilities, the time, everything that they do for us and helping us out. And again, we couldn't do it without them. We really appreciate them. And like we said on that note, tune in next week.
Yeah, this is Tigers Talk Rugby. Thank you for listening.
Have a great day. All right, and then we'll just cut from this point.
Yeah. We need to re-record the United States part.
Yeah.
Somebody.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry.
You got carried away with a lot of names that weren't on there, and I was just trusting you, and yeah, they did not exist.
Well, I looked over on Instagram, and I thought I saw all those names, but then looking at that one, it was false.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I was trying to find some of those names, and I was like, well,